I'm now excited to introduce our next speaker, Apollinaire Abi, who is joining us from Lomé in Togo. Apollinaire is a research associate at EquiTech Futures, and he started as an EquiTech scholar in the class of 2022. Before that, he received a Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics and a postgraduate diploma in Economics and Computer Science from Ashoka University in India. He also holds a diploma in entrepreneurial leadership from the African Leadership Academy in South Africa. And most recently, he won the prestigious Kabir Banerjee Predoctoral Fellowship to start a predoctoral research position at the University of Chicago. And Apollinaire has been doing some very exciting work on digital finance in Togo, and I'm going to hand it over to him to start his presentation.
Okay, hello again. My name is Apollinaire Abi. I'm from Togo, and in the next few minutes, we'll be talking about how a new technology is adopted in a developing country. I'll start this talk by telling you some of my experience with payment in different countries. In 2016, when I was in South Africa for 2 years, I mostly used credit card and debit card for most payment, and on rare occasions, cash for things like transportation. In India, when I was there for 4 years, I used for all type of payment without an exception my smartphone equipped with a unified payment interface, which is driving digital payments in Asia. When I joined Nigeria for some months last year, I used cash mostly for payments and on their occasion, Airtel's mobile money system. However, when I came to Togo last year and up to now, more than a year now, I failed to convince any merchant, shop owner, or transportation agent to use mobile money for payments. And every transaction is through cash, except maybe for sending money to a relative who's living away. This led to my curiosity to understand why people prefer to use cash when they have access to digital financing technologies, because in countries like Togo and Nigeria, where cash is preferred, there are actually systems to use to pay digitally rather than hands-to-hand cash transfers. I've been working on this project with Dr. Abhilash Mishra and Keshin Shu, who are both in our presence in this call. The mobile money technology has been introduced to the world in 2007 in Kenya, and I call it the M-Pesa miracle because M-Pesa, as many of you are familiar with the technology, I assume, was introduced in Kenya in 2007, and only 4 years after the introduction of the technology, 70% of Kenyan households already adopted the technology. And that is at least 2 times faster than the adoption of the telephones, internet, and other technologies anywhere around the world, making mobile money and M-Pesa one of the fastest adopted technology that is cited. Mobile money is a cheap and simple to use technology, which does not require a smartphone, a simple phone which can make calls and SMSs is enough. No internet connection is needed, and no bank account is needed. The technology is simply installed in the SIM card of the user, and all they need is mobile network from a provider allowing them to make calls and sending SMSs. The technology works through an SMS-based interaction where a user sends an SMS and receives further instruction on which code or SMS to send again in order to complete a given transaction. When a user needs to deposit money or withdraw money from their accounts, there are usually mobile money agents available at every corner in big cities, and of course in some corners when it comes to villages and rural areas to help them with such transactions and other assistance. Such a cheap and simple to use technology is very important for the developing world, where there are no resources to use state-of-the-art and very advanced technologies like UPI in India and other systems around the world. We can cite for some importance financial inclusion, where mobile money helps include the elders, the older generation, and people without banks, helps with generating data on financial behaviors, to also help with financial resilience, of course. And so one of the most important for me use of mobile money is enabling even isolated communities to receive access to essential utility services like electricity and water, since they can pay for these services digitally at a distance. Or an important and relevant example I like to cite when it comes to mobile money use was in Togo in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. The government was able to send in cash transfer as assistance to the most affected communities in the country by the pandemic through mobile money, because this technology was widely adopted in the country. However, there is a puzzle. Technology access does not simply translate usage, and we will analyze the case of Western Africa and Eastern Africa when it comes to mobile money to see what the figures tell us. Here we see that when it comes to the adoption, which can be deducted through live services and registered accounts, Eastern Africa has adopted this technology almost at equal numbers as Western Africa did. However, when we consider factors that speaks more about the usage of the technology, we see that Eastern Africa transacts in terms of transaction volumes almost 3 times more than Western Africa. And this data is based on 2022 only. And we also observe that when it comes to transaction values, that's the amount of money that goes in and out of the technology in the year, Eastern Africa transacts almost also 3 times more than Western Africa using mobile money. And so we try to understand why the usage is so low in Western Africa or other countries compared to Eastern Africa, when the adoption is almost equal. So our initial study is based on Togo, where we collected data on registered account holders in Togo. We were able to get 1,225 responses through in-person surveys and collected data on over 170 features of variables, speaking about mobile money usage and behaviors. 97% of respondents in our sample had a mobile money account, which speaks about the wide adoption of the technology in the country. And 79% of these people who had accounts were unbanked. These are some snaps of the team of surveyors who collected data, including myself, during the month of January and February of this year. The results, as shown by the bar chart here, shows us that mobile money in Togo, in our sample that we studied, is used at a preferred frequency of only once in a week, where 1/3 of the population use this technology only once in a week, even though they have it in their pockets at the comfort of their cell phones every day. And only about 10% of the people in our study use this technology every day. And we also observed that about 25% of users in our sample do not use technology more than once in a month, and some use it less than once in a month. An interesting observation we also realized is that people who use mobile money frequently tend to be people who do not like to save their money into their accounts, which is very interesting because a user needs to have money into their accounts before they can make a transaction. However, people prefer to only put money into their accounts when they need it, and we can already see how tedious this process can be, and they do not prefer to keep it into their account, but simply keep repeating the process almost every day or once in 2 days. When we compare the preference of cash and mobile money, when it comes to activities that people can pay for, payment people can make through mobile money in Togo, we observe that for most activities, almost all of them except for remittances, people prefer to use cash with higher proportions in our sample. Only for sending remittances to families and relatives, people prefer to use mobile money. And even for paying for airtime, which is the easiest way to use mobile money, there is an equally distributed likelihood that the user prefers to use mobile money over cash to pay for airtime. We see that out of the over 1,200 people who collect data on, none of them has ever None of them mentioned to ever have used mobile money to pay for transportation, and almost equal observation for merchant shopping and paying for taxes and other services. Some of the reasons that people cited for preferring to use cash is that they always needed the money immediately and did not want to save it into a digital account. They found it to be convenience. Some cited old habits, and they also think that it is faster to use cash and also easier. Some reasons people did not want to use mobile money for these activities were some cited, although few of them, that they were not aware that they could use mobile money for these transactions. Many thought that the process was too long and tedious. Others thought that mobile money should not be used as a bank, which of course it can be. And many others cited the reason that the recipients were not accepting to receive the payment through mobile money. That's something that I face a lot, almost every day in Togo. Our study focused on categorizing the many reasons that we studied why people do not prefer to use mobile money to 4 behavioral mechanisms. The first one is lack of trust, where a new technology, a digital technology which help users to keep money digitally, exposes these users to online scam threats. It also exposes them to trust issues concerning changes to fees and charges, and also not being able to withdraw their money when they need it. We also study inefficient learning, which is the ability and knowledge of a user to optimally use the technology. We also talk about bounded rationality, which is the amount of memory the technology requires a user in order to be able to use the technology optimally. Mobile money, for instance, relies on SMS transaction codes, which must be known or memorized in some cases, and also secret login pins, which if a user forgets them, of course, will log them out of their accounts and might take a few hours or days before they can recover their accounts. We also talk about technical sludge, and that speaks about how easy and in a flowing manner the technology is designed to be used. You can imagine a technology which is based on SMS transactions and does not use an app can be a bit tedious. A technology where to withdraw money, you might need to go to an agent every time you have a need, or an agency can also be quite tedious. And we study and compare the effects of all these mechanisms through a multinomial logistic regression, which allows us to compare the likelihood or the changes in likelihood to use mobile money at other frequencies rather than once at least every 2 days, which we call frequent usage. So when we study some of these effects, we observe, for example, that when a user does not use the available mobile app for mobile money transaction, they are at least 12 times more likely to use this technology only once in a month rather than once in 2 days. And they're also 3 times more likely to use the technology only once in a week. We also in this presentation give some results where you see that newer users, those are users who did not use mobile money 2 years plus ago, and they are 2 times more likely to use mobile money once in a month rather than frequently compared to other users. Users who found the codes to be too complex or complained about the process being too long or complex were 3 times more likely to use the technology less often, that is once in a month only, rather than every 2 days. Users who experienced overcharges, which were not explained, were also 1.5 times more likely to use the technology only once in a month rather than once every 2 days. Lack of awareness also had a significant effect on the probability that a user uses this technology less often. When we talk about such a technology, some of the concerns that we may have when it comes to using the technology more often will be exposure to trust. It will be also forgetting the secret logging pin, which might log a user out of their account. We also talk about network issues, especially in a poor country, and getting the recipient's number wrong, which might lead to a user sending money to a stranger. However, our study shows that all of these reasons that I just cited, which obviously are concerned, had little to no effect on the behavior of our users, of users in our sample when it comes to their choice to use the technology frequently or not. So as a conclusion, we observe that the factors that make a user less probable to use the technology frequently, and that is at least once every 2 days, are those related to inefficient learning and technical sludge. So increasing the usage of the technology necessitates addressing these two mechanisms first. And this is some good news for people interested in the adoption and usage of a technology, because these two mechanisms are those that are more feasible to improve about mobile money. The other two mechanisms are lack of trust, which cannot really be controlled by the supply industry, since these are factors influenced by external individuals. We also talk about cognitive load for such a technology relying on SMS codes. You can see how difficult it is to influence or remove these memory loads required to use the technology. Luckily, addressing inefficient learning and technical sludge will help in increasing the usage of the technology in the developing world. Thank you, and every question is welcome.